Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Hi. Day 6
Thank you
of
so much.
World Unity Week with our theme of love. And here we are in the Humanity as Organism Convergence Room. And I'm very blessed. Tom, in Frederick, Maryland, saying hello. And everybody, if you do have a chance to say hello, identify where on the planet you are geographically. And if you want to speak a little bit more metaphysically, feel free to do that too. But we're in what looks like the home stretch, of course, of World Unity Week, and stepping into a place where, of course, every finish line is a brand new quantum leap open door, right? So we've got a lot of things to do, and I'm very excited to introduce Elliott Robertson, who has been speaking these languages for a while. I got the benefit of meeting him for the first time this week over the phone, and this is actually the first time we've seen each other's face. So spiritual growth coach, and he's excited as a certified happy for no reason workshop leader. And we'll elaborate on that as well. And his book called Visions of a Joyful World is coming out this year. And in 2022, he published A Letter to Hafiz, his book, and his articles have appeared in publications all around the world, including Science of Mind and Miracles. And he has served as a staff writer for Daily Word. So he's the founder of his platform called Beyond Divisions. And this will be a collaborative inside the concept, inside our theme and playground of what we call humanity as organism thrives. And a lot of the co-creation and the collaboration that's happened already. Elliott's going to put us in a place where we're heart-centered, and we can speak maybe without even using this thing, maybe without even words, and radiate. So Elliott, I turn it over to you. Is there anything else that you'd like to clarify about yourself that you want people to know that you think is important before we ask you to?
I just want to say a big thank you to you, Dr. Tom, and to Hasina for including me in part of the organism thriving.
Humanity as organism thrives.
Yes, this is a lovely room with a lovely theme. And I really do believe that if we are heart-centered, that is one of the most important steps or a very valuable key to thriving on every level, in every way. So I really do feel like this befriending your heart event and conversation really does fit in with the overall theme of the week that you guys are presenting and bringing forward. It's something that I feel like we really, in general, most of us need a lot of work on, is living day to day with the heart as a friend. Or I could have named this little hour together, this little gathering, paid attention to the heart, because that really is, the first step to being a friend with somebody is to pay attention. That's the greatest, most generous, gracious gift we could give to anyone, or including to our heart. That you may want to think about that as the first step to becoming a friend to your heart, and that is the main focus possibly of the entire hour. We'll see where the conversation goes. I just thought would be really nice to have an experiential moment where we get to talk with our heart. What I notice that in the past with myself, and I've seen it in other people too, is that very often our heart might say something to us like, oh, I'd love to meet someone and have a romantic relationship. And then there might be some sort of response like, oh, I'm too old, or it's just not going to happen, or whatever the response is. And then the heart's desire is dismissed. Or maybe the heart is saying something about wanting to travel or whatever, and it's like, well, I don't have enough money now, or I have to wait until we have an empty nest. And then the postponing response can sometimes happen. There are just all sorts of ways to keep the heart's desires at arm's length, to dismiss or discount the heart's feelings on whatever matter is showing up. And it's just, I find that it can be really pervasive sometimes, that we can just go for weeks and weeks and weeks, and that can be our constant knee-jerk automatic response, just the gates going down, and just no willingness to listen to the heart, hold space for the heart. And holding space really and truly is being available to, open to being influenced by the one you're speaking with. If a father responds to a son who says, I want to drop out of high school, by saying, well, it works to go through high school to graduate, and it's going to work for you, and that's the end of the conversation. Or the father could hold space. And if he's really holding space, it may end out being that the conversation goes in a direction of, maybe that is the right thing to do, to drop out of school, now that I know the whole story, now that you've shared with me all of your concerns and why you want to drop out. That's ideally the relationship that we'll have with our own self and with our own heart, is just really being available to a transparent conversation, as opposed to just cutting things short as soon as the heart begins to speak up, putting the heart's voice to a close. So we're going to have some time where we are going to, I'm going to just encourage you to apologize, to make that the communication that you have with your heart, if that's something that's true for you, if you are relating to what I'm saying and noticing that there are places and times in your life, perhaps very recently, or maybe distant past or whatever, if you feel like that's a dynamic that's there, I'm going to just encourage you to go ahead and apologize to the heart. And it doesn't have to be for anything specific. It can be, but it could just be for apologizing for your general attitude or the general dynamic that you bring to the conversation. And then from there, we'll continue it. The apology will just last for a minute or two, and we'll continue it with a couple of other things. So basically, the first step is for you to just look where you are, and you're going to be forming a triangle. And one of the points of the triangle, the first point, is going to be where you are right now. So you could, if you want to do this with 3 chairs or something, you could do that. But you can also just stand up for some of the points. You don't have to move from where you are right now to another chair. You could just move to another point on the floor, where you're going to find, you're just going to see a triangle on the floor. It can be, the points are 1 foot apart. It can be 6 feet apart, 7 feet apart. It can be anywhere. Just an equilateral triangle is what you're trying to find space for, all around you. And then you'll have your 3 points. The first point is going to be where we begin. The second point you're going to go to in a couple of minutes after you've spoken to your heart. And the third point is going to be your final part. It's going to be about a 7-minute process. You can keep your eyes open for the entire thing. And why don't we begin right now? And what you're going to do first is, I'll just be your tour guide, and you can just do everything that I ask you to do if you'd like. I invite you to just look at point number 2, and you're going to see your heart sitting in that chair or standing up over there. So go ahead, and whatever place is the second point of the triangle, you can just look over there, and you can just notice that your heart is there listening. And you can go ahead and, either out loud or quietly, whatever you want to do, you can just say whatever is on your heart to say to your heart, whatever is present. And maybe it's an apology. And I'm going to just be quiet for a minute or two, so you can go ahead and do that. And then I'll pipe in again with the next step. There'll be 3 steps. So go ahead, and if you want to apologize to your heart, go ahead. And you're going to be looking at your heart the entire time. The 2 of you will have eye contact. You're going to be going, you'll be going over to the second place where your heart was, and you're going to be your heart. And your heart is going to be looking at where you've been sitting, where you are, and is going to respond with whatever shows up, however your heart wants to respond to you. So go ahead and go from point one to point two. And if it's a chair there, you can sit down and you'll be your heart sitting on the chair, and you'll be looking at point one and holding eye contact with you and acknowledging the sharing. Maybe you want to start with saying, thank you for sharing that with me, and then go on from there with a response. And I'll be quiet for a couple of minutes now. And wherever you are now, go ahead and bring that to a close. And you don't have to come back to the first seat. You can go to the third spot if you want to, wherever that third spot of the triangle is. And you can go ahead and just, keep in mind whatever the heart was saying. Go ahead and receive that. Go ahead and continue to listen to what the heart was saying as you go over to the third point of the triangle. And if there's a chair there, you can sit down or you can stand up if there's not a chair. And now what you're going to do is you're not going to look at point one. You're not going to look at the point two where the heart was. You're not going to look at point one where you were. You're going to look at the spot right in the middle of point one and point two, where the relationship is between the heart and yourself. You're going to be looking at all the space in between point one and point two, especially the center point there, the middle of that line. And you're the witness now. And you get to be surprised, perhaps. You get to go deep within. You've been listening to this conversation and watching it. And you can go ahead while you look at the space in between the two. You can say, something I've noticed is, or whatever it is that the witness has observed, you can share with the two of them. So go ahead, and I'll be quiet for a minute or two. And wherever you are right now with that, go ahead and bring that to a close. Take a moment or two to bring that to a close and to return to where you started, which is probably in front of the computer. And you can go ahead and acknowledge the other two who are with you, the heart and the witness. You can go ahead and look at the two of them. And you can just say thank you if you want to. If you want to commit to being with them again within the next week or two, you can do that too, if you want to. I hold this as a sacred exercise. And yeah. And sometimes it's nice to do it a second go around also, if that's what's present for you when you come back to the first seat. If you want to do a little more, that's also an option. So maybe next time you'll want to do two or maybe even three go rounds. So I'd like to just let the talking stick sit in the center of the circle. I'd be delighted to hear any personal experience that has taken place, if that's what you'd like to share when you pick up the talking stick, or whatever it is on the topic of paying attention to the heart, befriending the heart, on your own personal experience over the years. I'm happy to hear anything.
I'll pick up the talking stick. I find it somewhat fascinating. I mean, the majority of my life is heart-based work, so I have a deep familiarity with a lot of this. And as I came into this room, there was a little pain in my heart, and I sort of attributed it to a lot of coffee this morning. Yet, as soon as you said we were going to do this exercise, I was like, it's probably not the coffee. And that was just so moving for me. I mean, realizing, being able to speak out like in the different ways of, so first of all, I don't feel that pain now. And then when I was at the point of, at the second point in talking, just a lot of sadness and that I was still carrying over maybe 3 years ago, just a lost relationship from a lover. And then just being able to like apologize to my heart and acknowledge like, wow, I do still hold that, even though I sort of thought I had released it and transformed it. So there was just a really large, I don't know, like lifting off of heaviness. So thank you, Elliott. I'm fascinated when I'm aware of it, but it still keeps me in awe of the connection of the emotional and the physical pain, and then how that physical pain is gone. I mean, it's such a testament.
You're welcome, and really, you need to thank yourself. You're the one who held space for that to happen.
That was a very unique exercise, and it's not something that has happened before. But when you said notice something, the noticing was that, wow, I've never witnessed my heart like this before in a quiet moment. There are many different exercises I do for self-reflection, but this is not something I've done, so it was very interesting.
Yeah, and I invite you to do it again and to be open to the experience being quite different next time, because we're always in a different space on our journey. And so it's possible for every moment to be the only one that's now, and then things can change as you get to a different place on your path. You can have unique experiences from one day to the next, of course. And I also always assume that everyone's having a different experience when I'm leading this, because we're all unique. We all have our own relationship with God. There are billions of religions or spiritualities on the planet. So it works not only with just unique people, but also with unique moments and unique places in your growth. Maybe you'll be more in a different place or whatever, or have different concerns or whatever in a week or two. So I invite you to just see what shows up next time. And maybe it'll end up being much deeper than it was this time. Who knows? For some people, the first time they're encountering something, it can be a little awkward and they can end up just dipping their toes in the water. That's not unusual for any kind of exercise or whatever, for the first go round to be a little bit in the shallow end of the pool. I'm not saying yours was. I treasure what you were just sharing. I'm just elaborating on the notion of doing it more than once. That's all. And no one is required to share about their personal experience. In fact, whenever I pass a talking stick around a circle, I always say that share talking and not talking when the stick arrives in your hands. Both are equally valid, equally respected, equally honored. And the only thing you need to do is to be true to what's present for you. If there's something to say that's present, you can be true to that. And if it's more true for you to pass it on to the next person, that's fine too with the talking stick. So plus, I also want to say that there are no required topics, including there's no requirement to share about your experience over the last few minutes. So if that's the last share we have on what this gathering has been like for the last 20 minutes or so, that's fine. We can move on down the stream and paddle somewhere else in the lake.
I'll grab the stick. It's funny you used the phrase shallow end of the pool, because when I realized the conversation that was happening, I was a little disappointed, and I thought I wanted this to be a deeper experience, because I wanted it to be about my personal life. And I thought, and the first thing that came to mind when I was looking at suggesting to my heart, the first thing that came to mind, something like I've always let the clock be in control, or I've always let the calendar be in control, right? And it was conversation about I apologize, I'm sorry that I haven't put my timeline out, something like that. So then I get over there and I look back at stuff. As witness, when I looked at the midline, there's something on the floor in the right at the point of the midline that represents my business. And what's very interesting is my business is very intellectual, intellectually stimulating for me. It's a very logical thing. And I realized what I can really bring is a heart-centered reality to that thing that I think is quite scientifically intriguing, right? And I don't know where that's going to go, but it was an interesting permission. It was an interesting confirmation, if you will, validation of that. I've known this was a heart-centered entrepreneurial or business opportunity or scientific opportunity. It's a heart-centered science, like that, something like that. So I forgive myself for initially judging that I was in the shallow end of the pool when I realized that it was a business conversation. And I love Hasina's first word, which was that was unique. That was a very unique experience. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yes, I love unique experiences because we're all unique. And I was just noticing that you never know beforehand where you might end up going, where the next few minutes are going to take you. And for everyone, it's different. And so that's one of the things I so appreciate about this, is that it's custom tailored to you, where you are on your path and what's going on for you automatically. It's all about you being your heart. And so yeah, this is just sort of a practice place, a gym to go to that can also rub off on and ripple into your entire 24/7 experience. I think, I hope that when you end out getting some time in the pool, it makes you more familiar with that. It contributes to the ability to have a conversation. And next time around, that out of the blue, your heart is saying, oh, I want to do such and such. Maybe, but after you've done this a couple times, you might be more prepared to listen, more aware of the value of listening. You might have more of a relationship established, and you might be able to catch yourself if you start to say it, to postpone it or whatever. Just by doing this kind of an exercise, it can help get your inner sails set in the direction of continuing with that, even spontaneously, just not when you're sitting down to do an exercise, but just throughout your life. That's my thinking, perhaps. And if anybody wants to say anything about what the heart had to say in response, I'm always interested in the heart's voice. So that's also welcome to share that. Or if you had a moment of surprise with the witness, I think you were saying that just a moment ago, that's also, of course, always interesting. Happy surprises are always fun to acknowledge.
Well, Elliott, what I'd love to know is what drew you to this work that you're doing? How did it come about? What was the story there? Because, like you said, it is very unique.
Yeah, I don't know how it is that the heart became my central focus for my worldview, for my understanding of the evolution of humanity, for what I want to contribute to. I'm always interested in helping with spiritual growth, and I always feel like the heart's garden, that all the key place is the heart. And so I don't really know how that all started. I mean, I just know the one thing I do know is that all my life, or I don't know, since a long time ago, I've always wanted to be a servant with a capital S. That's been my heart's desire. And so that seems to be the fuel tank for me. That's the engine. That's where the fire is just serving. I was talking with somebody who was mentoring me a few years ago, and I was explaining to him, oh, I just love being a servant, I just love being a coach, blah, blah, blah. And it's like I was saying, and sometimes I go to a cafe and just write an article or whatever, and just because I do better in cafes, I really do with my writing. And even if I'm low on money, I go ahead and spend a couple dollars on a coffee, my rent for being in the cafe. And so in other words, I was basically also explaining to him that I sometimes end up making sacrifices for the sake of being a servant, because that's how much I love it. And he was saying he was like totally okay with that, and giving me a kudos for that. And at the same time, he was saying, "Wait a minute, isn't enjoying life equally important?" So I've had moments in my life and long periods of forgetting about that, and not having it on my radar. So I guess the two can go very much hand in hand, like two pieces of two interconnected threads of a DNA, strands of a DNA.
In our previous session, we were just talking about the different kinds of wake-up calls. My dad used to call it, you'll get poked in the ribs until you get hit upside the head with the 2x4. And so what were you doing logistically as far as the planet was concerned when you were minding your own business before you got the wake-up call?
Oh, I used
Just
to
give
be
listeners a sense of where you came from, the kind of terrain you came from, emotional family like that, and then did you go down the conventional road and then boom, somebody hoodwinked you?
Yeah, my spiritual growth has been so gradual. I've never had a moment like I guess Saul, but before he became Paul, the road to Damascus, when he immediately had a flash, an experience that, or like Malcolm X, who had a week on a spiritual retreat or whatever it was. It was more important than a retreat. It was an annual event in Mecca, and he ended up writing a letter during his 1 week experience to all of his fellow Americans saying, "You're not going to believe what I'm saying, but I no longer am going to demonize any race at all." And it was just, he had made a big conversion experience in the course of a few days. And he said it was all because he's an open-minded person. So there are those conversion experiences. In my case, I don't know if I have a moment that I can point to. It's I think a lot of people also have very gradual spiritual growth experiences. And yes, I am unrecognizable today compared to when I was in my youth. In my youth, I was full of bitterness. My constant frame of reference when I walked around town and noticed people who could afford these expensive cafes, these people who were gathered with friends in the outside cafe, and I didn't really have any friends, and or the guys who were online for a gay movie with their boyfriend, and I didn't have a boyfriend, and I was like, oh, I don't have any money, I can't afford this cafe. I was full of bitterness and jealousy. For me, the two went very much hand in hand, and I was always saying, God, so it's just not fair because I've been good, I deserve a reward, and the rewards never come from you, God. And so it was just real bitterness all the time. I was also attacking my father, you might say, in that I had a vendetta out to get him. I wanted to lower him and make him feel guilty and blame him for who I was. I did it in very sideways, hidden ways in my communication with him. So I don't know if he was aware of it or not. But recently I forgive myself for attacking my father, and it just feels so yummy. But yeah, those were the two major dark places, I think, in my life for quite some time. Always wanting my father to feel guilty for my lack of success. I was really insane in so many ways. And since then, thanks to God, thanks to life, there's been one baby step after another, a lot of spiritual growth, and I've recognized the gifts that I brought with me, such as the gift of being able to write in an inspiring way and being able to design things that are really that reach people in their soul, sometimes on a deep level.
Nice. Not the least of whom is yourself. Yeah, that's a great.
Yeah, I've become much more authentic.
Courage.
Exactly.
Yeah, we all have that as we think we have to summon and call on some courageous center, right? It's always, always, always there. I think one of the things this week is making clear to me is new ways to let people be that which they know already, right? If we would simply step away from the known engagement with them, right? And then all of a sudden they get to be something else. And speaking about,
are you saying that it's good to not tie people to their past, to
sure,
not expect them a year later when you have your reunion for them to be the same person? Is that sort of what you're saying?
good. That's a good analogy. Yeah, very nice. I noticed. So I apologize if this is a oddly footed question, but I don't know you very well, and so I don't know your expressions. But when you said, I consider this a sacred exercise, it felt to me that you were quite emotional. It felt to me that you were about to tear up. Is that true? And
thank you for.
And what does it mean? When you say you consider it a sacred exercise, why? And what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I hadn't really remembered that. Thank you for reminding me of that moment. And yes, I was indeed feeling rather emotional about that. And I think maybe part of the reason I was feeling in my heart and in my emotions at that moment was because I also am very grateful for the gift of that exercise. I really, so often when I write a poem or something, and I hope it's a bridge from earth to heaven, I mean, on the one hand, I know God lives in my heart, and that's his favorite place to be, her favorite place to be. Lately, I've been going with she more often. And on the other hand, there is this place in me that really doesn't want my fingerprints on the poem, that really feels like when I do something like design something like that, that it comes to me as a gift, that it's from beyond me. It just has that feeling to it. And so part of the emotion was just the gratitude for being able to serve in that way.
I love how you describe that, the bridge from earth to heaven. And I think all of us who write can relate, because it is something that comes through you. There was something else that struck me when we were talking about, you were talking about success, and you mentioned the phrase lack of success. We were actually just talking about something like that before, that we get to define our success, and when we think lack of success, it's really by our own definition, that we don't have to define success as anyone else does, because we're all so unique. And it kind of speaks to how unique your exercise is, that I'd imagine success is a very different definition for you, and as it should be for all of us.
Oh, thank you for bringing this up, Hasina. And what you're making me aware of right now, when you bring that forward, is that I really didn't know a lot when I was in my youth, and I was full of bitterness, and I was attacking my father, and I had no clue about a lot of things, including success. And maybe I was buying into, the successful person is the person who has a big paycheck or something along those lines, or who's happy with their job. I was really unhappy at work, and every time I got a new job, it was like within a month, I was like, I want to get out of here. So I had a lot of things that you could say were making me miserable. Of course, I'm the one who was making myself miserable. But anyway, yeah, you really did shine a light on what was true for me in my youth, not really understanding what success was. And that's one of the things that I trust has changed over the years.
And I think we can invite anyone who's here to the discussion, because it's so great when we have these discussions, just like the previous session. It's wonderful to just tap into everyone's feelings, and
Yes, I'd love to hear a little bit about your stories as well, your life experience. I've shared a little bit about how I was years ago, if that's what's showing up for you, or whatever you'd like to share about your friendship with your heart, your relationship with your heart. I'm just eager to have it not be a back and forth between me and everyone. I'd love to just have us go in a circle if you'd like. And of course, it's only if you really want to share. That's entirely your choice.
Well,
And if anybody has anything burning, but you don't want to be on camera and you don't want your voice, honor it and put it in the chat. Feel free to do that as well. Doesn't have to be any conventional presentation of anything.
This is so beautiful to sit in a sacred circle and to be able to have the safety and sacredness to ask these questions and be able to respond from that loving space of our heart. And two things I want to share, one about Elliott and one about myself. So I'll start with myself. When something you just said, Elliott, and I don't know what maybe the crux was for you, but you mentioned about going into a job and then just wanting to get out of there. And it reminded me of myself, how I would step into an arena of a job. And I've always had this passion that my work is aligned with my heart. And so if it didn't match, then I didn't understand it for most of my years. For the first 25 years, I just wanted to leave the job. But I had people saying, no, you should stay committed, da, da, da. But I was like, I'm unhappy. I'm going to die. It's this ridiculous, it's like very dramatic. But as I became more in tune with my heart, it was just not quite the alignment. Like my time there was done and it wasn't aligned with who I am. And I just remember working this corporate job and I hired a friend and I would walk into her office. I stayed there 5 years. I would walk in her office and she'd be like, I know, you're not living your life purpose. You need to leave this job. Like she could just feel my heart. And I'm glad in the last 5 or 6 years, I've been able to align more, but I will say I'm a little, I don't think scared is the right word, but I'm definitely in the unknown because I've been feeling that angst coming up into World Unity Week. And I've been on a bit of a walkabout. This, heart to home journey is what I've called it. Yet what I can see clearly is that I'm not in the right place right now, and it's unknown, and I'm supposed to leap. So I appreciate conversations like this. I appreciate, what's been cultivating here in World Unity Week. And I can feel the more I've just let my heart lead, the synchronistic connection. So I value that. And what I want to share about Elliott is I've had the gift and the honor of dancing in these Zoom rooms with Elliott, and held space for him a year or two ago while he was reading some of his poetry. And I said to him, I thought that he was reading, and help me say the name, Hafiz. Hafiz. I said, oh, so you're reading, I listened and I heard them all. And I said, oh, so you were reading Hafiz's poems. And he said, no, it was entitled like inspired by him. And I just remember, and because you just said it, like it comes through you. You don't necessarily need to put your name on it, yet the way the words come through you, so poetically and profoundly. And it's just it's a transmission. It's truly heart transmission. So it's one of my favorite. I have many really wonderful memories about Elliott since we've been dancing in the Zoom rooms, and that's one of them. So thank you, Elliott.
Oh, and thank you. You belong to me forever, Karen.
Aloha.
Aloha.
I'm Dana. I like Karen, I've actually worked with the heart all my life. When I was only 23, I arrived at the Heart Math Institute, and then I became a member of the research team, and I was there for 12 years, and I was studying the heart, both from a scientific perspective, well, a new scientific perspective that integrated science and spirituality, and also from an inner perspective, which is a lot of the work that we did at Heart Math was on our inner selves. And one thing about the heart, it's truly multidimensional, and it's infinite. It's like we understand levels and layers of it, but the levels and layers keep going on, and in my mind are infinite, and there's so much more. It's like we barely scratched the surface, and I believe there always will be more to understand and to know and to experience about the heart. And it's a beautiful journey, and I really believe, like, in this shift in consciousness going on the planet, that, like the founder of Heart Math Doc used to say, he said, it's heart time on the planet. It's time for the heart to emerge, and for us to really engage it more, and to like delve into those levels and layers and in our own inner being, and how that can radiate out into the world. Like in my own conversation today that we did, I was still asking my heart, I didn't feel I needed to apologize to it because I've had quite an honoring relationship with it for a long time. However, I always wish to hear it more clearly. I always wish it would still be louder, and to hear that signal with more integrity, even though I make lots of efforts to do so. So that's my sharing.
Beautiful. And I love Heart Math. And I have a friend, Sebastian Blacksley, who is most well known possibly for Choose Only Love, which some say is the sequel to A Course of Love, which some say is the sequel to A Course in Miracles. So the third sequel. He is going to be publishing a book called The Age of the Heart soon, that was channeled by an angel. So yeah, so it is the age of the heart that we are on the threshold of now, right now, and nothing could be more exciting. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more conversations about the heart. And when my bio was read, the book that's coming out pretty soon, an anthology that I'm helping out, that I'm editing, is called Visions of a Joyful World. And the subtitle, the working subtitle is Dreaming in a Heart-Centered World. So we have a lot in common. You are so blessed and so fortunate to be working for Heart Math. That would be a dream come true for me. So anyway.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Nice to share with you.
And we are getting pretty close to the time when we're going to need to draw the afternoon to a close. We're not totally there yet, but I do want to just let people know that I can be reached. You know what I'll do? I'll put it in the chat, that I can be reached if anyone wants to be in touch with me, especially to ask questions about the process we did, especially if you want to repeat it and you don't really exactly remember all the details, or whatever you want to be in touch with me about. My email address is Elliott Robertson, joyfulworld@gmail.com. And I'm going to put that in the chat because there are different ways to spell Elliott. And my way is with 2 L's and 2 T's. And anyone
Thank
else
you,
who
Elliott.
wants to talk.
This may be an underhanded thing to do right at the end of the hour, but I'm going to ask you the biggest question, which is, where do you see yourself in 10 years, and how can we take heart-centered messages into the extrapolation of everything that's coming out of this week? What do you see happening as far as heart go and quantum leap in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I haven't asked myself where am I going to be in 10 years, but I'm certain.
It's over there at point 2 of the triangle. Just, you can let us know.
Well, I really
You'll
have a
let us
lot of
know.
certainty that I'm being supported like never before. So I wouldn't be surprised if I'm much more well known. I wouldn't be surprised. And I'll just leave it at that.
Got it. Thank you.
And I'm not sure if I have clarity about, you see, the tricky thing about looking into the future sometimes can be that like, for example, I think that when Nostradamus was looking into the future, he may have been looking at a bunch of different probabilities. And those probabilities may have changed 10 years after he made his predictions. And so if he had waited 10 years to make those predictions, or waited until after he died, whatever, he might have tapped into different things. So if over the next year, there's huge quantum leaps, then we might be able to see something different from anything I would say now. So I'm a little bit hesitant to talk about, 10 years from now. I mean, what's the key? Certainly the heart must be included. The heart is the place where wisdom comes from. And in the conversations about alternative artificial intelligence, the heart needs to dominate the discussion, and we have to always be mindful of what's best for everyone's interest. That's what the wise heart does, is always say, what is the highest good for everyone? So I think that might be my answer.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I do want to share real quickly before we end, Elliott, just because I heard you say it would be a dream for you to work with heart math. And, these are things that you might know, yet one, I want to invite, everyone to today's open space technology forum. It's at 5:00 Eastern time. And that's when we take everything we've experienced in these last, are we on day 7? 7 days. And we come together with true action. And so those they'll start to group people together. So the heart-based people, and we're all heart-based, but, that's your mission and focus. And these, these action steps form so easily, and these connections. And, Teresa Collins, can somebody help me? The name, because they've changed the name, Good of the Whole, and they were in Islands of Coherence. But, Teresa, do you know Teresa Collins? Elliott?
No, I don't.
Okay, so please, global coherence, that's right in what you're doing. And if you want to get really technical with it, Heart Math has their global coherence app. It's on the telephone. You can't see my telephone right now. And you go in there and measure, you could be doing a reading or a heart exercise like we just did. We could measure the coherence of what's happening during that time. I mean, there's such a plethora of ways to connect with one another. And that's the whole purpose, you know, for this year, World Unity Week, they've done the missions, and people have been declaring missions that they'll be living out between now and September, these 99 days of peace through unity. So I'd say we are at such a pivotal point of collaboration and union with technology, people. So there's just, and if you're ever not sure, call me. Not that I have the answer, but I can find it through, you know, who can I connect with? So just really want to put that out there, because you said that you're so supported, and I have a sense that you know that you're so supported, but maybe you're like, what number am I supposed to call to get that support? So
Thank you, Karen. I will definitely turn to you if I need support.
Thank
Thank
you,
you
guys.
so much. And I do know that we are getting very close to the top of the hour, so perhaps we do need to close out now.
Keep us in the loop as to your unfoldings, and many gratitudes for bringing us
Thank you.
space
Such a
exploration
blessing.
today. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Elliott.
Such a blessing to be here today.